Okay, recording. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome. My name is Andrea Miller, and I want to welcome you to the Single No More, How to Feel Confident You Can Meet and Keep Your Mr. Right This Year online summit. Now, I put this summit together because I love helping people find love, and I've realized that our success in love really depends on us. So we have a lot more power. And when I say power, I mean ability and competence to not only find, but create the relationship that we want. So it's really about our paying attention to our thoughts and our behaviors and really being aware of the things we can control. So each guest I'm going to have on this show is going to be providing some amazing insight to give you the confidence that you can not only find your Mr. Right this year, but also keep him. So let's get started. My guest today is the lovely Arielle Ford. She's been called the Cupid of Consciousness and also the Fairy Godmother of Love. Pretty good titles. And she is a love and relationship expert and leading personality in the personal growth and contemporary spirituality movement for the past 25 years. Now, her mission is very similar to mine. It's to help people find love, keep love, but most importantly, be love, which we're going to get to in a little bit because I want to hear more about that. Now, she is also the author of 11 books, which is absolutely outstanding. The Soulmate Secret, you might know this is all about finding your partner, and then also how to turn your mate into your soulmate, which is all about keeping love. So the reason I have this beautiful lady on the show today is because she is really passionate about the two topics of this show, which is finding love, but also keeping love. And if you want to find love, she's got a great book. It's called The Soulmate Secret. Go grab that one. But what we're going to focus on today is keeping love, because it's actually just as important to keep love, because if you don't keep love, you're still technically single, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to talk a lot about that. So that way you can really understand what it takes to be in a relationship so you can really start the process correct from the get-go. So hello.
Hey, Andrea, how are you?
Great. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm super excited about this topic. I think we can talk about it all day, every day, and that's why we do. But I'm really excited to help our viewers, just get some amazing insight, because I know you've got a lot of good stuff to share. So before we get started, I really want to come back to that line where you say, be love. When you say, okay, I want to help find love, keep love, but be love. What do you mean by that?
Well, being love is a choice, all right? It's a state of being. We can be mean, grouchy, nasty, bitchy, or we can be loving, kind, generous, and compassionate. It's really a choice that we make moment by moment. Who do I want to be for myself and for the world? How do I want to show up? And, how quickly can I course correct when I am in, the mode of bitchy, mean, nasty, grumpy, whatever, which are legitimate states. I mean, I go through the range of them all day long.
Yeah.
I choose not to stay, and one of the things that women tend to do is, yes, they get bitchy, mean, nasty, grumpy to themselves more than anything else.
Yeah.
It's not just about being loved to the outside world. How can I be more loving towards myself? And this is really different from the self-love movement, which is out there really filling women's heads with a bunch of BS saying, you love yourself, nobody else is going to love you.
Yeah.
You've discovered by now, there's no faster way to love yourself than to be with a partner who has a look in his eyes like you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. And what is more healing than that? So for all of you out there who say, well, I can't start dating, or I'm not ready to be in a relationship because I don't love myself enough, here's what I have to tell you. That's just bullshit, okay? The rest of your life, you will have thoughts and moments and days where you don't love yourself. And it doesn't mean that you're not lovable. It just means that you're human. We all have a critical voice in our head. We all have doubts. That's no reason not to be with your soulmate.
That just hits so many levels of truthness. It's amazing. I was always the one that was getting into love, but I couldn't keep love. And I think it was exactly what you were talking about. I didn't realize that when I was getting upset, I was getting upset at myself for not doing something right, or not acting the way I wanted to, or something going on with work, but I was totally thinking it was the other person. And therefore this person isn't right for me. But what I had to realize was this was my own issue, and he's still just being there loving me. But I'm like, I probably was looking for a reason. So I can definitely see how that causes a bunch of issues that kind of appear to be there, but aren't there. And I love what you said about how we actually need to get into relationships to realize this. I was saying to someone the other day, I said, yeah, it's easier to be alone. I mean, it's not enjoyable, but it actually probably is easier because none of your stuff comes up. And a lot of your stuff is going to come up with you in a relationship. I think people think it's then wrong, but it's actually just there. It's just how it works. But then that's the opportunity to grow, right? So I love what you're saying there. That's so good.
One of the things I wish I could teach everybody is the work of Dr. John Gottman at the University of Washington. He's the world's leading researcher on marriage. He's been doing it for over 50 years. Mm-hmm. And what he's discovered is that every single couple, not just some, all couples have a minimum of 9 irreconcilable differences. Okay, that means things you're never, ever, ever going to agree on. And of course, the first one, which is the number one cause of all divorce, is money. Generally in a couple, one person's a spender, one's a saver. And then we're always trying to fix the other one like something's wrong. Or one person's always late, one's on time. One wants sex 5 times a day, one wants it once a month. One person's a perfectionist, clean freak, neatnik, the other one's a total messy slob. And we think this is a good enough reason not to love somebody and to divorce them, when in fact it is absolutely normal. Yeah. And the solution to normal is to be loving, kind, generous, compassionate, and come up with creative solutions to your differences. Mm-hmm. Because there's nobody out there who's going to match you completely in terms of how you like everything. Now, granted, there'll be lots of things you agree on. And then there'll be the stuff where you're like, oh my God, how can he keep doing that? Right? And, that's why I wrote one of my books, which is called Wabi Sabi Love. Yeah. Because in Japan, there's an art form called Wabi Sabi. And it's all about honoring the beauty and perfection in imperfections. Mm. And when you master Wabi Sabi, life gets so much easier.
Oh yeah, I saw a video of yours on that, and I loved it because, again, I've always said to people, no one's looking for anyone perfect, just someone who's perfect for them.
Exactly.
And I just think that's true. However, I said that to myself. However, I was still looking for somebody perfect. Absolutely. And like you were saying, all those examples, I would have ran the other way. Totally would have ran the other way and gone, nope, guess it's not going to work. But now now that I understand it, I hear those things and I go, that's okay. That's not a big deal.
Like, they accept you for all your weird, quirky, annoying things that you do and that I do. Yeah. So why can't we be that accepting and generous? It doesn't mean they're wrong. And that's part of the problem with life today. Everything's either right or wrong. It's my way or the highway, as opposed to my favorite motto of all time is, it's a both and world. It's both the way you say it is and the way I say it is. Yeah. And there is no right and wrong. It's like one of the biggest issues Brian and I had after we got married came down to money. He grew up in a very affluent home. His mother taught him only to buy the best of everything. He'd never shopped a sale in his life. I grew up in a, not wealthy home, and where every single day my parents fought over money. As far as I was concerned, we were the poorest people on the block. And I'm a very frugal person. Yeah. So now we came together and we were both had good incomes. It wasn't a matter of how much money we had. It was a matter of how we spent it. And I realized that I kept judging him every time he'd buy a $75 bottle of Cabernet. It's like, why can't you buy a $20 bottle? And finally I came to the like aha moment that I had to explain to him why I am the way that I am, and have him understand that I come from this long line of people who live in there's not enough and I'm going to starve to death, which he didn't come from. So he taught me to understand the value and beauty of designer goods and having the best of something. And I taught him how to shop sales. And the way we were able to organize our money, which worked so brilliantly, was we had 3 accounts. There was my account, his account, and our joint account. And we didn't police each other on the individual accounts, but on the joint account, we had an agreement. Nobody spends more than $500 without buy-in from the other. And we did that for years until I felt safe enough to actually like share credit cards with him. You know, but it was my issue. I was making him wrong, but it was totally my fear and my the soup that I was cooked in.
Mm-hmm. I love
and
it. I mean,
creative solutions.
Like that is so much a reason where I would look at that and go, oh, well, I guess we're different on it. Again, it's a reason to walk away. And I feel like we walk away or we want to run because that's easier. And this way, we just have to face it. We have to face our fears. We have to face why we're feeling that way. And you were able to come up with a solution. I love that you said there was 3 accounts, because a big epiphany for me too was very similar. I had to realize that by being in a relationship, because I totally fell for he completes me and he's my other half. Well, if he's your other half, that means you're half a person and he's half a person. And that nobody wants that, where I feel like I got very clear on myself and how amazing I am. And he was attracted to me because of that. He's his own amazing person. That's why he's gotten to where he is today. And we also have this thing in the middle called our relationship. So it really is a 1 + 1 = 3. And when I realized that, I was like, oh my God, we get it. We get it all.
Let me do the math even better for you. Okay. 1 + 1 = 11, and your love blesses the world.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. Yeah, it's crazy because like you said, I feel like it sounded like when you were telling me that story about wanting him to be your way or show him why, it almost feels like a resistance. There was a lot of resistance as well for me too. It's like we couldn't mesh or we couldn't get along, and there was a lot of friction and we were resisting it. But the minute you just went, oh, he's that way, I'm this way, both are correct.
Yes.
And that's okay. Oh my gosh, it just feels so much more.
Right? There's
Yeah, there's a lot more space. There's a lot more, like you said, abundance. We're not in a deficit. We're in abundance. And it's a very different feeling than like trying to control it almost. But now you're just accepting. And I just think there's a lot of power in that.
In a relationship, you need to find room for lots of things. The 3 things that I say you have to get professional help with is if there's abuse, addiction, or really bad behavior. Mm-hmm. You know, I don't think any of the stuff we know about love qualifies us to help somebody that's in an abusive relationship. That's really deep, dark stuff. Mm-hmm. But other than that, you can come up with the wabi-sabi creative solution that is a win-win for everybody. And it's not necessarily a compromise, because I see compromises that we're both willing to lose, as opposed to, a big win-win where we both feel loved, seen, heard, supported by the choices we're making.
I think what we don't realize too, like you're saying, is that we don't pay attention to the gain we're going to get. We just focus on the loss. And if you focus on the loss, you're going to feel like you're losing. But if you actually focus on what you're gaining, which is a partner, acceptance, just, company, everything that probably happiness, everything everybody says they want in a relationship. But for some reason, we seem to focus on what we're losing versus what we're gaining.
And this is why I'm a big advocate for wearing these little puppies. They're called rose-colored glasses.
They look good on you. They match your shirt. I love it.
Okay, well, here's the thing about rose-colored glasses. They actually did a scientific study at the University of Buffalo. And what they discovered is that couples that consciously choose to wear rose-colored glasses have longer, happier, and more satisfying marriages. And the reason is because they're always looking for what's right instead of looking for what's wrong. And women in particular they're like heat-seeking missiles for what's wrong. And if you're looking for what's wrong, you're going to find it. But it takes a lot more energy and presence and attention to pay attention to your partner looking for what's right. And the thing that Dr. Gottman recommends is that every day you share with your partner 5 acknowledgments or appreciations for things they have said or that they're doing with you. And when you're doing that, there's no time to look for what's wrong.
Yeah, that's great. You're focusing on what do I want to compliment them on, or what do I want to share with them that I'm grateful for. That makes sense.
And
And I
all
love,
of us love to be acknowledged, you know, like for some reason we have this idea that, you know, men, they're so self-confident. They don't need a lot of attention. They're like cactuses,
mm,
water 'em once in a while and they're fine. But the truth is they actually need more acknowledgement than women. So,
yeah.
you know, he says to, you know, if he comes up with an idea for something, you
Mhm.
could just say, oh, honey, that's nice. Or you could say, oh my God, that's absolutely brilliant. That's so perfect. I'm so glad you thought of that.
Yeah.
Doesn't that feel a whole lot better than, okay, I guess that'll work?
And it probably feels good to him, but it probably also feels good to you. You know, I think there's a lot of joy in giving, as we all know. So
Enthusiasm really counts for a lot. You
yeah,
know, and you're not going to be your partner's biggest cheerleader. He
yeah,
may find somebody who will be.
yeah. Oh, so true. And you've said in one of your videos, you said, think of your partner's annoying habits as gifts, right? I think we can all focus on, oh, they do this and they do this. And I was doing that as well. I mean, maybe he wasn't doing something totally annoying, but again, I was focusing on what I wasn't getting. He wasn't telling me I was beautiful, or he wasn't telling me I love you, or outpouring his love, which is what I wanted and was almost seeking. Again, my issue.
I have a book for that. I'll tell you about it in a
Okay,
second.
good. But it was funny because I literally, this is how big of a shift you can make literally in a moment, and you just have to do it to yourself, is I had to go, hang on, he's sitting right next to me right now. He's choosing to be with me 24/7. Yes, he's going off and doing work. We're go doing our work, but why am I seeking this thing of telling me I'm beautiful? I know I'm beautiful. I know I'm amazing. Like, you know, I can give that to myself, but I also needed to see the value in him just being in my presence and choosing me. And I think we don't give each other enough credit for the person choosing us, and I think that's where it comes down to our own issue. Ooh, I love that.
This is called the Everything Book, and
Okay.
it's a fill in the blank book.
Oh
So
wow.
you fill out the right side of the page, he fills out the left side of the page, and it's got hundreds of
Wow.
questions. And the book is designed to be an owner's manual on each of you so that you don't have to, you know, keep begging or asking. Like, you know, he may bring you home 24 carnations. You hate carnations. You really want stargazer lilies. But now it's in the book.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to remember. You know, you just put every little thing you want and you don't have to beg. And it's only available on Amazon. It's $9.99 on Amazon, and it's called the Everything Book.
Right.
It's called The Essential Details About the One You Love. So, you know, you might want to fill it out and then just
Yeah.
say, okay, now I need you to fill it out because I want to make you the happiest man alive,
Yeah.
and I need more details, you know, because there's questions in there you've probably never asked him.
And I'll admit he's probably not the best communicator. And I know that. And again, this was a reason I was like, I'm going to walk the other way. But you know what? There's these ways, there's books, there's tools that you can just go, you know what? He shows it to me in different ways, and that's okay. Yeah. And I think,
And the thing is, here's a little tip that really works well. So let's say the next time he just does say to you, oh, you look really good in that, or whatever it is.
yeah.
Throw your arms around him, you give him a big kiss, and you go, oh my God, just hearing you tell me that I'm beautiful
Oh,
me up with so much joy. And it's just positive reinforcement. Because
yeah.
some part of his brain's going to go, oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll work again, because you know, men tend to do the same thing over and over again.
If they
So
know it's going to get a good outcome.
you have to incentivize them. You know, if what you need him to do is take out the trash and he's always forgetting and you're always nudging him,
Mm,
already. He knows it's Sunday night and the trash needs to go out. But when he walks back in after he's done it, you
yeah.
come and whisper in his ear, you make me feel like a queen. You are absolutely my king. Because of you, I don't have to touch that stinky, smelly garbage. God bless you. You're the best husband ever. And then you walk away. You know,
Yeah.
and someone said to me one day, well, that sounds like you're training dolphins or dogs. And I'm like, yeah, yes, yes, it doesn't
And a
matter.
secret now. Okay.
You know who Dr. Phil is, right?
Yeah, of
Dr.
course.
Phil always says, we train people how to treat us.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's nothing manipulative about giving positive reinforcement for the behavior we want to see more of.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all unique, right? So I think what everyone needs to realize is they're unique, we're unique. So it's also a unique relationship. And like you said, educate that person on how you work, because you're going to have little quirks and they're going to have quirks and things that rub them the wrong way, things they really like to hear. So it's just about learning those things. Again, there's no one size fits all. So we need to learn those things, and it's only going to benefit you, right?
It's like, pretty much my husband's the most easygoing person on the planet. He doesn't stress a lot. But you don't want to start an intense conversation with him before he's going to bed, because if he ever gets a little cranky, it's right before he goes to sleep. So you learn the timing of how to approach somebody, when they're most likely to be open, and one of the things I learned from John Gray, which I thought was so genius, he said, the biggest mistake most women make is that they don't check their tone of voice when they're talking to their beloved. Nobody wants to hear a whiny, complaining, screeching, nagging voice. You bring it down a few levels and add a little sweetness and a little gentleness to it, and you can pretty much get anything you want.
That is so interesting, because again, what we're talking about is, again, things that we can do. It's got nothing to do with what they're doing. We just be very conscious about how we're showing up, right?
Yeah.
The other day, my fiance was just out all day working, and he was traveling, and he was coming back at 6 p.m. And I thought, I don't know how he's going to be. He could be totally busy, good mood, bad mood. I don't know. But either way, I just said, I'm just going to be a supportive, loving fiance as well. And all I did was give him a smile, bring him over a glass of water, give him a hug. I didn't have to have necessarily a home cooked meal, even though my mom probably said I should, but we're, that's what we do. But I think he was just so relieved. I mean, think about it. If you're the guy and you come home to someone who's like, and all on them in a bad way, or someone who's just there with open arms. And it's sometimes just that simple to just be loving, but yet it can be hard, right?
It is that simple. And one of the mistakes lots of women make, especially if they're coaches, is you open the door, you can see by the look on his face, he's had a hard day, he's stressed out, and they want to talk to him about it, and they want to know how he's feeling. Those are the two worst possible ways to approach it, because it's obvious they're upside down. If they want your help, they'll ask for it. He's not asking for it. So the best possible thing to do is what you did. Hand him the remote control, hand him his favorite beverage, lead him to a chair, say, why don't you watch Sports Center for an hour or go work out, and then let him, process himself, rebuild his testosterone levels, because that's how they offload stress, and then come to you as opposed to, oh, you never want to talk to me, and I feel like I'm all.
Oh, terrible.
Yeah, terrible.
Oh, just as you just said that, I just went, oh, that just seems hard. But it is hard for us to be the other way. We just got to be super loving and not realize that that's just there. They're not mad at us. They're not liking us. They're just having their, day-to-day reality, right? And this is where I think, you said in one of your books, I think where a lot of us go, start to question the relationship is those day-to-day realities don't match the everyday fairy tale of the dream, right? And it's just because we live day to day and we get upset and frustrated, and yet we have to live alongside someone at that time. And we realize that those are, again, just outside triggers that are affecting us, but it still doesn't mean that my partner doesn't love me then, or that he's being an ass. It's just, we're just
life is hard
sometimes.
It's stressful, and our ability to manage the level of stress comes and goes depending on what it is. When Brian sees me getting stressed out, he knows that my safe place is a bubble bath. He's like, oh, go take a bath. You'll feel so much better. Or he'll remind me, just take a couple of slow, deep breaths. This is going to pass. It's going to be okay. Doesn't actually try to fix me. He just reminds me of what he knows works for me.
Right.
So if a guy comes in, he's stressed out, give him some space. You and I, we'd rather talk about it.
Yeah, right.
We'll go deep and we'll talk about, Meghan Markle's shoes, and we'll talk about how bad the world is, and there's a dress on sale over here, and I can't believe that idiot said XYZ, and we'll have multiple conversations going on, and we'll track each other completely. Yeah. Well, men's brains don't operate that way. They can handle one question at a time. They can focus on one conversation at a time. So, don't confuse them, don't make life hard for them, and don't try to make them your best girlfriend.
So what we're talking about here is it takes time to learn your partner. How long would you say that it takes to get to this point? Like, is it a long while? Is it, because I think we all have theories that we should know right away, but I want people to get the enjoyment that comes from the longevity of it.
Yeah, I mean, we're 22 years in, and I'm still learning new stuff every day, and I'm still curious, and I still think he's the most fascinating person I've ever met. And there are days when I hate him and moments when I want to kill him. And it's just, it's just a wave. It comes and goes. But at the end of the day, I live in this cocoon knowing that I'm loved. I'm with somebody who I totally trust. He's my safe place to land. He'd take a bullet for me. He'll celebrate me on my good days and he'll pick me up on my bad days. And that's who we are to each other. And some days are boring as hell. And sometimes we have lots of fun, new, exciting stuff. And all this is just normal. All this happily ever after shit that we read about in the fairy tales. We get to make our own happily even after. And some of it's easy and some of it's hard, and it's just a process. And the thing that your single viewers need to understand is you've got to really pick wisely. Okay. If you're picking based on your feelings alone, you're in bad shape. The state of being in love is the world's greatest drug high. It's nature's trick to get us to procreate. Yeah. And it's just a bunch of hormones like adrenaline and oxytocin and things I can't even pronounce, cascading through our brains. It puts us into this state that I call the socially acceptable form of insanity. And we're in it for like 6 months to 3 years. Then it pretty much wears off and goes away. And it's at that point, we have to see, well, did I pick somebody with whom I have great connection and compatibility and communication skills? And yes, chemistry is nice. It's not the most important thing because that will go up and down, especially as you age, and what you learn is that, oh yeah, the really crazy hot sex of the early days was fun. But what's even more satisfying is this deeper, intimate connection and knowingness that you have someone who's a witness to your life, who you walk through life with. And good sex and bad sex and no sex, and that's not a good enough reason to say I do.
Yeah, I love what you said in the beginning, how you have similarities and we always find people that we have a lot in common with. That's quite natural. But I love when you brought up Gottman's point about there's going to be a lot of irreconcilable differences. So what I want to know, and the reason I'm asking is because I feel like if a lot of people know what's ahead, they can make better decisions at the beginning. And so you have an expertise in knowing what the elements of a happy marriage are. So what are the elements of a happy marriage?
Well, it's basically what I just mentioned: connection, compatibility, communication, chemistry. But the number one most important one is shared vision for the future. You want kids, I want kids. You want to live at the beach, I want to live at the beach. We both agree that, we're going to spend Christmas with my parents and Thanksgiving with your parents, or whatever it is, that we have sort of these big, important things that are shared. Because it's suddenly, like, for me, one of the most important things when I was manifesting my soulmate was that it was somebody who liked adventure travel. There's no way, even if he was the hottest guy ever and I was madly in love, if he didn't have a passport and was agoraphobic, it was never going to work.
Right.
So you have to know about the shared vision for the future really early on.
Yeah.
Which is why I tell single women, when you're online dating, you pretty much want to have a headline that says what you're up to. So if you're saying, I'm looking for a traditional marriage with my own children, living near the shore, someone would say, well, I don't want to scare anybody off. And I'd say, yes, you do.
Yeah, that's a great point. Oh,
he's just looking to have a good time, or he has 2 ex-wives and 5 kids.
Yeah.
You don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
So it's really important to first have clarity of what the elements are that will contribute to your long-term happiness. Not his height, weight, income level, all of which is going to go up and down and change, That's not going to contribute to your long-term happiness.
Yeah.
But if you know you got to have kids, or in my case, I knew for sure I didn't want kids, it doesn't help to be on your fifth date when suddenly you find out, oh, yes, I had cancer as a child and I'm sterile and I'm never going to have kids and I'm against in vitro. Yeah. And you've just wasted hours and hours of your life.
Yeah.
So, if what you're up to is finding your soulmate, there's a way to casually introduce things into conversations that are not an interrogation.
Probably more curious. You want to be curious.
Yeah, you want to be curious. Or my friend Evan Marquette's, who I think is a genius dating coach. I love Evan. So Evan says, like on your first date, you want to talk to them as if they're the person sitting next to you on an airplane. You're not looking at them, oh, are you my soulmate?
Right,
right. You're just having this casual, friendly conversation to see if there's any connection, any flow there. Oh, I'm going to New York. Why are you going to New York? Oh, I'm going to a Scrabble tournament. Oh, I love Scrabble. Whatever.
Yeah, totally. It takes the pressure off, and then therefore you can come at it from an inquisitive nature, and it probably feels a lot more natural, and it'll feel natural to them too.
The other thing I want to mention here is that a lot of women think they're intuitive, or they may be intuitive, but they believe in their intuition so much, they think that they can decide within 20 or 40 or 50 seconds, he's not the one.
Right.
And that's absolutely not true ever, okay? Yeah. And the research is showing that I've interviewed a ton of soulmate couples, so I've backed it up with my own research. Most women who finally find their soulmates did not feel any chemistry until the fifth date. Okay. And there's a reason for this. A lot of times men will know instantly because men make a lot of choices visually.
Yep.
Women do not make choices visually unless they're just looking for hot sex.
Yep.
Women fall in love in between their ears.
Yeah.
You have to actually get to know somebody's character and who they're really about. And the more you learn about them, the more attractive they become.
Yeah.
So if you're going out with a coffee date once and saying, oh, no, he's not that attractive, I don't think so. You're probably throwing away a perfect potential mate.
Yeah, someone asked me that the other day. She said, how long do I give it? And you just said 5 dates. And that makes sense why. We are very different in terms of getting to know someone. I know that I know how much more comfortable I feel when I am with someone, either a friend or a potential boyfriend, when I get to know them and when they're familiar. It's just that familiarity that we start to really relax. So that makes a lot of sense. And what you were saying before about the elements of a really good, happy marriage, what I was hearing was definitely work out your deal breakers and also your lifestyle. So I'm definitely thinking, make sure you have a shared lifestyle and none of those big deal breakers, kids or not, where you want to live, those things. And I say that because I think that was a big determiner as to why I chose the guy I did, because I actually said to myself, oh my gosh, we want to spend the day the same way. We want to sometimes get up and work out. Sometimes we want to sleep in. We want to work hard all day. We want to have a drink, and then we want to have a nice dinner. And then we want to go to bed relatively early. And usually have about an hour on the couch of mindless TV before we go to bed. And I just thought, wow, why would I not want to be with somebody who wants to spend the same day the same way? Because then I'm never missing out on what I want to do. I'm never going to feel like, oh, I'm always doing what he wants to do. I'm like, we are doing what we want to do. We get to do it together. How amazing is that?
Right. And then, and then that changes. So Brian and I have been together 22 years now, and we've traveled all over the world and we've had a great time. And we both did a ton of traveling when we were single. And then 3 years ago, he says to me, I'm really getting tired of traveling. The airports are a nightmare. He said, I'm willing to do one trip a year, but really I want to stay home and watch every sunset from our deck. I was like, but my list is, I got this list. It's so long. But he wasn't kidding, and so now I've learned to either travel by myself or I travel with friends, so I can still fulfill that part of me that wants to go and see and do, and I understand, traveling is much harder today than it used to be. It's a lot more struggle. So there has to be some flexibility there too. Of course, we're in our 60s now, so there's other reasons to slow down.
Yeah.
But yeah, the lifestyle thing's super, super important, you know, and it's great that you have individual hobbies, and then you have, like, we love to go to movies, and we are, you know, we're foodies. You know, that's like our two major forms of entertainment. So we have that. But imagine, you know, you're with somebody who, you know, is like this hardcore, gluten-free, vegan, whatever, and you know, every time you go to a restaurant it's a struggle, or you only get to eat at the vegan places. And like, personally, I can't eat it. I can eat vegan food occasionally, but I'm a meat eater. That's just all there is to it. I need a good steak a couple of times a week.
Yeah.
Brian's the same way. Actually, he'd have steak every night if I cook it.
I know. I think maybe a man thing, but yeah, and I go in waves too. Yeah.
It's not one's wrong and the other isn't.
Yeah.
But, you know, if food's really important to you, it's a nice thing to share with the other person.
Yeah, I always used to say, and when you get a partner, it's like you get double the meal choices. Now when you hit the menu, you know, you're like, what do I want? And I'm always like, so what are you getting? Because I'm thinking, well, I'm having some of that too. So.
No, we do that too. We split everything. It's lots of fun. We like the same things, you know, so it makes life more enjoyable. And I do know one couple where she's, you know, an organic, gluten-free vegan, and he's a hunter meat eater.
Wow.
And they get along just fine, because the way she rationalizes in her head is that he only kills what he eats, right? Mm-hmm. So, and he is a very humane, compassionate guy. Mm-hmm. And, you know, so they coexist that way. So it is possible for that to happen. But it took them 7 years to get to that point, because they got engaged early on, and then they weren't getting married. It's like, well, what's the problem? She explained the whole thing to me. It's like, but he treats you like a queen, and he loves you, and you love him. What do you care if he kills a few ducks every once in a while? You know, he's not asking you to clean and cook them, right?
Right.
They work it out.
Why do you think that we as women, we hang on to those things that aren't working versus kind of seeing those great, you know, like you were able to see that he adores you. And for so long, everyone said that to me as well about my fiance. They were like, but he loves you, but he adores you. And I was like, well, but that doesn't count, you know, or it's like, why do we discount that?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think I had that particular issue, but, you know, we all have our core wounds, you know, that we're not lovable enough, or we're going to be abandoned, or there's something wrong with us, or, you know. And what I finally learned after, you know, doing every self-help class alive on the planet and years of therapy and all that, is that we're all going to die with our core wounds. Now, if we do a lot of personal growth work, we learn how to manage our core wounds. We know how to mitigate them. So my biggest one was poverty consciousness. And I have a whole spiritual toolbox full of things I do when it creeps up, which is, you know, either tapping or the Sedona method or doing a heart lock-in. And I manage my, you know, anxiety when I get triggered over money stuff. However, it's never gone away completely. Yeah. And so what I've come to see is that, you know, if your core wound is I'm unlovable, well, you will find your soulmate, and you will find out how lovable you are, and it will get better. And there will be days when you wake up and go, oh God, how does anybody put up with me? I'm just such a piece of whatever. Now, one of the interesting things that happened this year was I went to hear Elizabeth Gilbert speak about her new book, City of Girls, which, by the way, is great. Okay. And you know, if you've read Eat, Pray, Love, then you know that she's kind of a basket case in her head. You know, she has a lot of worry and anxiety, and she's been trying to heal herself for years. Well, at this event, she described what she does every morning just to get herself out of bed. She meditates, she prays, she journals, she reads poetry. She has like this 3-hour process just to get herself in a mindset where she can go out and deal with the day. So I'm sure you and I and most people, you know, aren't that mashugana, which means crazy in Yiddish. But we all need to manage our insanity. We all have something, you know. Stop trying to fix it. Start trying to live like, oh, well, someday when I love myself enough, I'll be worthy of marriage. You're going to die alone if you live in that mindset.
Or someday when I'm perfect, right? Like I realized that I was thinking that until I was perfect, until I was this great person and I wasn't upset about this and I achieved this. But then I thought to myself,
wait, I got to tell you about that. Okay. So I actually reached perfection. So way back in, I think it was 1981, I was on this quest to be perfect. And what that meant was that, okay, so I'm 5'8". What that meant was that I would weigh 125 pounds. Mm-hmm. I had numbers for all my measurements. My hair would be a certain length. All 10 nails would be at the right length and be real. Like I had, and I would weigh 125. Like I had this chart, and I spent like 9 months measuring every piece of food, running, lifting weights,
hardcore, wow.
Doing abs, like doing it all.
Wow.
And I hit perfection on this one particular day when I was in the Bahamas at a Club Med by myself. And I woke up in the morning and I like realized, oh my God, today's the day. I'm perfect. And I was really happy for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Then I realized that I couldn't tell anybody. I didn't know these other people here at Club Med. What am I going to do? Run around saying, did you notice I'm perfect? And I saw that being perfect wasn't where I wanted to go. What I was looking for was I wanted to be happy and content. Mm-hmm. And having a perfect body, one moment in time, had nothing to do with where I was at internally, which was the beginning of my personal growth path. It defined what does it take to be a happy person. And I found out that having a perfect body wasn't it. The good thing that happened that day.
I really thought it was at one time, which is so interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was this guy at Club Med who decided to use me as a model for the day. So he took a lot of pictures of me. Mm-hmm. So I still have one picture somewhere that proves my physical perfection. Mm-hmm. But I'd rather be where I am today, which is much older, gray hair.
Beautiful.
30 pounds more than I said I wanted to be.
Yeah.
But happy, satisfied, and content.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like, again, it really made me realize that if we're always achieving to try to get somewhere and we're putting other things aside, we're not realizing that we can achieve the goals we want to in life, and we can have someone by our side. And if you're always seeking perfection, essentially you're always going to be disappointed. So, you really have to kind of, if you relax those things and realize that we don't have to be perfect, nobody wants anyone perfect, and yet we can still achieve a lot of things. And like you said, one of the biggest things is having someone to celebrate it with is.
Right. And here's something you probably don't know.
Okay.
So, or you may know this, men really like to be right.
Okay.
Love to be right. And your fiance chose you, right? Yeah. But if you walk around tearing yourself down and complaining, oh, my butt's too big, my face is sagging, I need a boob job, whatever it is, if you're making yourself wrong, he feels bad because you're making his choice wrong. So if you have this desperate need to bitch and whine and moan about yourself, do it to a girlfriend. Do not do it to your significant other because it's a form of putting toxicity into the relationship.
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful and so interesting, because you're basically reaffirming, like I was saying, the thoughts that we have, not only about either love and whether we're going to find that person, but the thoughts we have about ourselves. How we speak to ourselves is so important. And I didn't realize that I was doing that. I thought, I'm super confident, I've got a boyfriend, I'm good. But I realized I was very hard on myself. I would get really angry at myself, and it really was not, it was affecting the relationship because it was affecting me more than I realized. And the minute I was able to go and be a lot nicer to myself was the day that our relationship really changed. And that's exactly what you're saying is it almost doesn't do us any good to say, oh, my butt's too big, or oh, I didn't do this today. I'm a great line that says if it's not nurturing, it's abuse, and that applies to yourself as well.
Exactly. Yeah. Because upset, and it's a form of selfishness to be obsessed that way. Yeah. It's like,
I love your insight that it actually then makes them question their choice about you. I don't think you ever would have thought of it that way. I would have thought, oh, well, again, I need to be this for this person. No, they chose you. You just need to be you. Just like you want someone else to just be them, you know?
Right. You know, and that's, you know, the other thing that's going to happen. As you're looking for a mate, you know, you may want to have on your must-have list, must lead a healthy lifestyle without being super specific, you know? You don't want to tell them what to eat or how to exercise. You just want to make sure you're not ending up with a, you know, a smoker, drinker, drug addict,
right.
You know, gambler, you know.
So general with your wants, because then if you get to the details, then you're
somebody who leads a healthy lifestyle is really inclusive. And at the same time, you don't want to be saying, okay, well, he has to earn X amount of dollars. What's more important is you want somebody who's financially responsible. So whether they make a little or a lot, you want somebody who knows how to manage and budget and be responsible for the income that's coming in. Because you could marry somebody who's got millions today, and when the market crashes, and it is going to crash one of these days, they could be totally because they weren't responsible. So there's ways to think big picture when you're manifesting your soulmate that takes in the whole scope of your life.
Yeah. When you just said, okay, he needs to be financially responsible or earn this amount, one seems very like a limited pool, and the other one seems very much more broad. And I think what a lot of women want to know is that there are men still out there. And by doing little shifts like that in terms of what you're looking for, that makes a big difference, right? You know, like you just said, if he wants to travel, I think I was always thinking my husband's going to be from California. That was the dream that I had in my head. My fiance is Australian. But then I thought, actually, but now we get the best of both worlds. He lives in the US and we live here too. And I just thought, wow, I was worrying about what I didn't get versus realizing the beauty we could, you know, the breadth of what we could have because I was focusing on the detail. So I think it's a great tip to
better to think about a warm, sunny climate, right?
Yeah.
Options, you know, could have been from Hawaii or, you know, Tahiti or some other warm, fabulous place, but now you get everything.
Yeah, and I think this is where we need to realize the picture and the dream that we have in our head, probably that came from the movies, like me, you know, and what's really out there. You know, when you go to a supermarket, you make a list because you know what's going to be there. But I think with love, you just need to write down your desires and keep an eye out and see what's there. You know, you don't know what's there. You're not going to create necessarily a human being. So, but I love that tip to keep it broad. That just, to me, it opens up so many options.
Exactly.
I love it. Oh my gosh. This has been one of the best talks in the world, in my opinion. I've loved this stuff. There's so many good insights. Is there anything else on this topic that you would love to add that we haven't covered?
Let me see. I want to just tell you one short story that's very wabi-sabi centric. So I had this woman in my workshop a few years ago, and she stood up and she said, well, you know, I have a problem that even you can't solve. And I was like, okay, what is it? She said, well, my name's Stephanie, and I've been married to Garth for 16 years. Mm-hmm. And she said, I'm a perfectionist, clean freak, neatnik, and he's a total messy, chaotic slob. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that I can take it anymore. He's never going to change. And the only thing keeping us together right now is that he works out of state 2 weeks of every month. Mm-hmm. So while he's gone, the house is pristine, but then he comes home and it's a mess again. Mm-hmm. And so I asked her, I said, well, Stephanie, do you have a dog? And she said, yes. And I said, does your dog shed? She said, yes. And, well, what do you do when the dog sheds? Well, I vacuum up after him. And I said, well, Stephanie, do you love your dog? And she got really quiet. And then she said, oh, my God, Garth sheds. And in that moment, she saw that just like the dog has zero control over his shedding, Garth, there's nothing he can do about being a messy slob. Yeah. So a year later, when I was writing Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate, I was thinking about her and I was wondering, well, was that like a workshop aha moment, or did something really shift? And I thought, how am I going to find her? I just remember her name's Stephanie, and this workshop was in Idaho. Anyway, I called the producer of the event and I said, I know this is a long shot, but when I did the workshop, there was this woman named Stephanie who's married to someone named Garth, and I really want to talk to her. And the woman on the phone said, oh, no problem. She's my best friend. Here's her number. So I was able to call her, and I said, how are things going? And she said, well, things are going so well that Garth quit his job to start an at-home business so we can be together 24/7.
Wow.
And yes, he's still a slob.
Oh my goodness. That is so cool. All I can think about when you tell that story is the mind shift and the perspective that she was able to make, which ultimately changed the trajectory of the relationship. If she kept focusing on the slob, it would have ended. But by realizing that that actually wasn't the right thing, it not only stayed good, it got better. And that's why, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
Her story. That's all she did was she shifted her perspective.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I get it. Oh, Cooper, my golden retriever. Of course, I love Cooper. He's gonna shed, and yes, I love Garth, and he sheds too. And we'll deal with it.
Yeah, and that just it made it from, and that's a big thing. If you find someone you love, it's almost like don't be so easy to throw it away. Like especially when you can make these small shifts that make a big difference. That happened with us as well. Like not only did we get back on track when my perspective shift, but now it just feels even better, and it's amazing. So I love that because that's so empowering, because that's things that we can do as women. So thank you so much. Before we close out, I want to let everyone know how can they learn more from you.
Well, my website is soulmatesecret.com, and I have free chapters on the homepage for Turn Your Mate into Your Soulmate. And then I also have a tab called Free Stuff. Cool. So feel free to go through that. One of the big offerings are what I call feelingizations. So they're better than a visualization, because a visualization just happens in your head and it's pretty pictures. A feelingization puts you into your heart to be in a space of love and appreciation and gratitude. And it's from there that you can manifest most powerfully. So soulmatesecret.com, there's lots of goodies there. Come and check it out.
Oh my gosh. And the fact that they're all free is just an amazing gift. And, even read your books. They're amazing. There's so much good content. And thank you so much for sharing all your insight. I've loved this chat today, and we will talk again soon.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Arielle.